New from MyProtein, the protein shake that changes the game. Way Forward is better for the planet and fuels maximum performance. It's time for change. It's time for the Way Forward.
Arnold Schwarzenegger recently said, you know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is. I hope I don't have to explain who that is. But anyway, he just celebrated his 75th birthday, so happy birthday to Arnold. I know him pretty well. Haven't seen him in a while, but I doubt if he'll see this video. But in any case, I want to talk today, well, I'm skipping ahead of myself. Everybody knows, or people who follow bodybuilding knows, there's been a lot of recent serious health problems involving some bodybuilders. Some of them have actually died. And there's various reasons for this. It has to do probably, at least indirectly, with using various anabolic drugs. In some cases, it's just a genetic factor, or it's a combination of using high-dose steroids and genetic factors. But in any case, I want to talk today about a practice that didn't exist back in the days when I competed, which would be in the 70s. Steroids were being used back then, but they were used in much lower doses comparatively than they are today in both the amateur and professional ranks. However, there's a practice today which is particularly dangerous. The most serious side effect related to using anabolic steroids and also growth hormone, it has to do with adverse cardiovascular effects. Among other things, when you take, for example, oral anabolic steroids, they stimulate an enzyme in the liver that rapidly degrades a protective form of cholesterol called high-density lipoprotein that opens you up towards possible heart disease. And also, using high-dose steroids increases clotting factors in the blood, which can cause the production of an internal blood clot, where that can include an artery. Let's say it happens in the heart, a coronary artery, and cause a myocardial infarction, also known as a heart attack. But I'm not going to get into all the cardiovascular complications. I just wanted to mention that in passing, because cardiovascular complications of using steroids are probably the most serious and probably play a role when you hear about deaths of bodybuilders in their 30s and 40s. That's got to be a premature death, again, unless there's some sort of genetic time bomb in these particular bodybuilders. But in most cases, it has to do with using these high-dose steroid regimes. Now, what I want to talk about today is a practice that, as I said, didn't exist years ago, but I see online, I've come across a couple of articles, and some of these quote-unquote coaches are having their bodybuilders do this. It's called blasting and cruising. Blasting and cruising, and related to using anabolic steroids. Now, what this involves is, let's backtrack a little again. When a bodybuilder takes high-dose steroids, when they get off the steroids, if they're not taking any drugs, they lose a lot of muscle size. And also, they tend to get depressed. And this causes a lot of bodybuilders to jump right back on the steroids to, prevent the muscle loss and to ease the depression. In other words, they can't take the effects they're getting from getting off the steroid regime. However, what happens? That's actually a form of addiction. In other words, they are literally addicted. It's a type of withdrawal syndrome, even though it's not a true drug withdrawal like you get with heroin and some other drugs. It is a withdrawal syndrome in the sense that there's changes in the body that tend to promote bodybuilders or anyone else using steroids to get right back on them. Now, what other bodybuilders do is and this actually makes a little bit more sense. What they do is after a steroid cycle, especially one that involves large doses, they'll do what they call post-cycle therapy. Now, when you take steroids, steroids are basically synthetic forms of testosterone. when you take a exogenous or outside form of testosterone, your natural production of testosterone is depressed through a feedback mechanism. It prevents the release of gonadotrophins, such as luteinizing hormone, that normally promote the synthesis of testosterone in the body. So to make it simple, when you take steroids or high dose of testosterone, something like that, your natural testosterone production is turned off. So when you get off steroids, you basically are hypogonadic. In other words, you're actually are not producing any testosterone or very little. So what the post-cycle therapy involves is using drugs such as HCG, human gonadotrophin, HCG, and other drugs, sometimes Clomid, which will kickstart your natural testosterone production. Human gonadotrophin, or HCG, works by mimicking the effects of luteinizing hormone, which is an anterior pituitary hormone that controls testosterone synthesis at the site of the testes, the Leydig cells. And when you take HCG, it kind of mimics that effect. So it kickstarts your lagging testosterone production. You only take this temporarily. It's not supposed to be taken all the time. And some bodybuilders make the mistake of taking too large a dose. They'll take like 5,000 units every other day. And if they do this for more than a month, the testes becomes refractory to HCG and it doesn't work anymore. But if it's done correctly, in some cases, if it's a sterility or fertility problem involved, a human menopausal gonadotrophin, it's another drug that mimics another pituitary hormone, which controls sperm production. That also is thrown in sometimes. But basically, for most athletes and bodybuilders, post-cycle therapy does tend to get the natural testosterone production going again. The time it takes for that to happen varies among individuals. In some individuals, it can take a long time, 6 months to 12 months. And others, it comes back just in a couple of weeks. But, to avoid that, in the last couple of years, this practice of blasting and cruising has been suggested, which, honestly, this you can say is my opinion. I think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Anybody interested in their health, you have to be completely insane to even consider blasting and cruising. What blasting and cruising involves is very simply never getting off the drugs. Now, instead of getting off, what happens is the blasting part, that involves taking the large doses of steroids, like the high-dose steroid regimes that are popular with athletes and bodybuilders. That's the blasting part. The cruising part, instead of getting off the drugs and going on a PCT or something like that, what the cruising involves is staying on low doses of steroids and never getting off them. That is insane. That is crazy. These morons that tell people to do that. I saw one article just earlier today. I was curious to see what it said. It advised people who are on large high-dose steroid regimes to cruise by using 100 to 200 milligrams of testosterone for 12 to 14 weeks, then going back on the blast. In other words, then going back on the high-dose steroid regime. Now, here's the problem with that. First of all, 100 to 200 is about the same dose suggested for men who are deficient in testosterone who undergo testosterone replacement therapy. 100 to 200 milligrams of testosterone is not dangerous for most men unless there's pre-existing problems they're not aware of, certain forms of cardiovascular disease, that type of thing. But it's usually a fairly safe dosage. So you might say to me, okay, if it's safe, then what's the problem with just dropping down to, taking a little low dose of testosterone to keep your muscles big and prevent all these withdrawal effects that happen when you get off the large dose? Here's the problem. Anytime, I don't care who you are, anytime you take large doses of steroids, oral and injectable, you're causing side effects. Whether you feel them or not varies. Some people notice them, some people don't. For example, whenever you take large doses of any type of oral anabolic steroid, Winstrol or Anadrol, and those kind of things, What happens is these oral steroids are designed to prevent the premature breakdown which would normally occur with testosterone in the liver. So they tend to accumulate in the liver, and as they accumulate, they cause a liver inflammation. It's known as chemical hepatitis. Now, a long-standing inflammation causes liver damage. Now, this could take a while. Usually the bodybuilders, they don't stay on the orals long enough to cause serious liver damage, but that can vary depending on the dose of the oral steroids. If they're taking massive doses, there's a good chance they will experience some severe liver damage right off the bat. If they're taking moderately high doses, they'll just get a liver inflammation, which you can tell by looking at what they call a liver blood panel, where their liver enzymes will be elevated. That's an indication of liver inflammation. That means that the steroids are, the inflammation in the liver caused by the steroids are beginning to degrade or break down the liver cells or hepatocytes. And if it continues, you're going to have a full-fledged liver disease. It could lead to cirrhosis, liver cancer, all these things. But again, most bodybuilders don't stay on the steroids. And of course, when you take the oral steroids, your HDL levels go down to nothing. I can go on and on with various side effects that occur with high-dose steroids, which again, so you may or may not feel them, but they're still happening. I don't care who you are. If you take the doses that the bodybuilders are using today, they are causing side effects. Now, again, if they get off the steroids and they go on the post-cycle therapy, and then once that's completed, they stay off the drugs, nothing will happen. The good news is that most of the damage incurred by using these steroids will be repaired by the body. It takes a little time, but the body will repair most of the damage. Not in all cases. Again, in some rare cases, it'll cause permanent damage. For example, taking high-dose steroids, they recently discovered, causes structural changes in the heart that are permanent. In other words, even when you get off the steroids, these structural changes in the heart stay there. And what that will do in the future, nobody really knows. It could, set you up for congestive heart failure later in life. Nobody really knows. It's too early to say. But again, in most cases, any of the side effects produced by steroids will regress. If you get off the drugs, if you go on PCT, give your body a chance to repair the damage. Now, this doesn't occur when you do the so-called cruising. When you go on cruising, even with the low doses of testosterone, 100 to 200, you're not giving your body a chance to, maybe some of the liver changes will return to normal. But the adverse cardiovascular changes are not going to revert back to normal. If you stay on steroids all year round, the so-called cruising, you're literally betting your life. Since this is a recent phenomenon, apparently it's only occurred in the last couple of years, there's not a lot of evidence of what it's going to do. However, the recent spate in cardiovascular problems among bodybuilders, I suspect, has a lot to do with this so-called blasting and cruising thing. So, I guess what I'm trying to say in this video is if you want to do this blasting and cruising and you stay on steroids all year round and you continue this indefinitely, 5-6 years, something like that or longer, you're going to have severe health problems. You will definitely have severe health problems. So, it's up to you, but I would say ignore the morons that tell you to do this. It's not safe. Cruising, staying on steroids all year round, even low doses, is not safe because you don't give your body a chance to heal the damage. So that's all I'm going to say about it. You could do whatever you want. I know a couple of trolls will call me names in the comments. I'm just telling you the truth based on science. So you can do whatever you want. If you're going to use high-dose steroids, which I would never recommend because they're not based on any science, but that's besides the point. People are going to do it anyway. At least be smart about it and get off them. Go on the post-cycle therapy and then get off them completely. Give your body a chance to heal. If you do the cruising stuff, you're playing with fire. Again, people's genetics vary. Some people can get much more sick or ill from staying on steroids all year round than others. Nobody can predict who these people are. So I'll leave it at that. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, ergogenic age, hormonal therapy, effective fat loss techniques, women's health and fitness, and many more topics, subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics, www.appliedmetabolics.com. It's 30 to 50 pages every month, no ads, pure evidence based on my 6 decades of study and empirical knowledge. In other words, things I've learned in the trenches, in the gym. I guarantee you, no matter what your level of education, you will learn something from Applied Metabolics. So subscribe today. When you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise, general medicine. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage, where current subscribers only, I don't accept unsolicited questions, current subscribers only can leave me short questions about anything they might have read in Applied Metabolics or anything else that comes to mind. As long as they're short questions, I'll answer that as a appreciation of their support of my work. So that's about it, and take care. And if you want to do that cruising, don't say you weren't warned. You will get screwed up. I promise you.